Welcome to the Erotic Entrepreneur's Money as a Lover. And we are starting with an opening meditation. So I'm going to invite you to briefly bring a hand to the heart, hand to the sex. Deepen the breath. And follow the breath deep into the pelvis. And allow the breath to be abundant, full, rich with oxygen, rich with energy. As you intend to grow your root, your tailbone like a taproot down into the earth. Connecting with the abundance of the planet, really feeling the multiple layers, the minerals, the nutrients of this vast and abundant, very fertile planet. So softening your breath, letting Mother Earth nurture you with her minerals and nutrients as you find your way towards the electromagnetic core, the crystalline center, and let yourself vibrate with this abundant, in fact, infinite source. So vibrating up through the core of your being, resonating with the heart. Finding the core of your body temple in this portal. The heart, a midpoint between earth and heaven. And on the next 10 breaths, we're invoking, calling in all of the cosmic guides. So following the inhalation, ascending into the higher frequencies, opening through the group heart, this field of sacred sexual healers, teachers, practitioners, visionaries, feeling the abundance of this tribe supporting you, and all of the guides and ascendant angels, allies, masters that are also inspiring, visioning, guiding us. So to begin this conversation of money as lover, what would they have us know? Who would they have us be? What would they have us do? Breathing and listening for a message. And gathering that sign or that symbol, whatever that dreamtime gift is, gathering that in your heart for 2 more breaths with sound on the exhale. And when you're ready, you look out from the back of your eyes at the abundance, the reflection of how much beauty there is in community, in our shared dharma. So taking a moment to just feel the richness. And I want to bring forth, as we come out of this moment of centering, how that experience can often contrast with the lack or the doubt or the limiting beliefs that will hijack us. So there's this felt sense that we have of immense abundance through our breath, through our feet on the earth. And then there's moments when like a little amnesia sets in and we forget and we feel thirsty or hungry or off. And so take a moment in your own body and just feel like, where does that lack live? Like, where in your nervous system is that? When we bring up the word money and money as a lover, just feel, is that a like exciting, expansive conversation? Because usually it is at one level, and then simultaneously somewhere there's a contraction, perhaps, or there's a judgment, or there's a fear. So just identify that trickle and that little spark of something that's off or out. Now, as we enter into this deeper conversation, I want to welcome that shadow, welcome that little black spot in your yin, like it's part of the wholeness of humanity. And I want to welcome the darkness around money to the conversation, especially as tantrikas, this is a non-dual path. And there's a lot of spiritual paths that will say, oh, let's handle money like energy. And then let's have these abundance meditations that transcend and bypass the fact that the very poor are suffering and the very, very rich are also immensely suffering, obsessed or workaholics, or like there's a lot of suffering in both sides of that spectrum. And the very poor and the very rich live inside of us as well. So there's those moments when we fracture because we feel in our heart of humanity, we feel the intensity of our own impoverished brothers and sisters or our own ancestors who lived that way, that are speaking through our veins, and then we go into contraction. And those are moments in which sometimes we are so in it that we forget. That we get, it's like a veil comes over and we can't see the richness that we currently have and that is available to us. So this conversation isn't just, let's think positive about, wealth and energy and the abundance. It's about how do we embrace the totality of money and have a relationship with it that is intimate and sensual and romantic and deep and spiritual, and overcome the tendency to have a dysfunctional Jekyll and Hyde relationship that tends to be, oh, I'm in it and I'm celebrating, but then I'm, like this feast and famine and oh, I've got two relationships with money, which is really kind of toxic. So when I say money as lover, I want to bring all of our tantric skills and tools and practices, as the lovers that we are on this path, to the conversation with how can we be with money the way that we are with the beloved. And so that's the intention, so I want to be clear on who, this is for. It's specifically for erotic entrepreneurs. And our journey is very unique and different than other spiritual practitioners or other businesses. And so we'll speak into that after I share a little bit about my background of how I came to loving. Actually, money came to me as a lover. And I want to share a little bit about that history. And then I also want to bring forth some of those limiting beliefs. It's kind of like, even if we're not in it, they're in culture, let's bring them into the light. So it's some shadow work. And we're going to do some like uprooting, some weeding of those beliefs before getting into the meat of this webinar, which is basically the 10 ways in which money can be like a tantric non-dual lover. And so I'm really bringing forth like 10 best practices in, a loving relationship and how that pertains to money. So that's what we're really here for. And if you resonate like with, these teachings and want to really apply these practices in your life. Because it's one thing to say, ooh, I'm going to go learn about a relationship. And it's another thing to say, how do I do the work to actually have a healthy relationship with money? And if you want to do the application with me, I'm going to offer you an invitation to go deeper in my Love Leadership year-long mentorship course. And so if you stay till the end of the webinar, I have limited discounted private sessions that I'm offering. So that'll be the invitation at the end of the call before we get to the harvest, which is actually kind of what are your next steps, whether you continue with me or not, like how can you really get value out of this time spent together. And it is my intention, by the way, that, hey, you're showing up. I'm asking you to have your cameras on. I'm asking you to be really present. I fucking value your time. I want you to get immense value out of this. So that I promise you. Now, my story starts, and this is kind of funny because we've all seen tons of money, like online marketing, various videos, and usually starts with the facilitator telling a story of how when they were broke and living down by the river in their van, and then what happens is, they had this breakthrough funnel, and let me tell you about their marketing plan. And I'm not going to show you pictures of my bank account or me and my Tesla in my 5-car garage. But my story does start with what I value. Like, before I started the recording, we all went around, we said, hey, I value my travel. I value my education. These are the things that I value, the things that we're grateful for. And so I definitely value going to these immensely gorgeous sacred sites on land, to put my body on the land and to vibrate with other sometimes half-naked hippies, however I do, temple culture is what I value and I invest in it. And so I was in Guatemala with one of my mentors, Bruce Lyon, and we were doing this deep exploration of like money in a sex magic like ceremony. And he was calling forth liberation, actually, just this deep call to freedom. And he said something that caused a massive satori. It was like one of the deep, I mean, I know those of you who are watching this, that you've had an awakening in your sex. You know what it's like when the Kundalini rises and you're like, wow, I'm one with everything through my sex, or had a heart awakening. Like it was one of those big awakenings, but it wasn't in the sex or the heart. It was actually in my relationship with money. And I was surprised it wasn't in my root. A lot of people say, oh, like our money contracts in our anus and our assholes where we hold our money tightness. It was all the way up, all the way down. I had a big satori. And it changed the whole conversation for me. So I bet you want to know what he said, which I'm getting to. After I share with you what I did was I took this this new directive, right? I came away going, wow, money is a lover. Like I have devoted my life force energy to relationship skills and tools. So those of you who don't know, I was on 2 seasons of a reality show called Polyamory, Married and Dating by Showtime. And that's the culmination of really, it's been 20 years of working on open relationship technologies and coaching now thousands of couples. And I'm in a 20-year successful marriage. And this is my passion. This is what I would do if I had, never got paid at all, or if I had all the money in the world, I'd still be relationship coaching. And when I realized, oh, wow, I'm a relationship expert, but how is my relationship with money? And then I realized it was dysfunctional. It was this very hot and cold love-hate that I'm describing, which you probably can resonate with. Like, oh, I love it when I have it. I hate it when it goes, that whole thing. And, me going, wow, what about using all of the technologies that I know to work towards money? So I started a focus group and I started gathering with the faculty of the International School of Temple Arts, and we did like 10 weeks over these 10 principles that I'm going to share with you to really explore it. And so that just game changed, because it has since led to my deep and total liberation around money. And that's ultimately what Bruce's cry was for me. It was, his being down on his knees, grateful for all of the beings who have invested in things that they value, that bring them joy, that make them come alive, and that they value. And that investment and gratitude of like, oh, money is value. But his question was like, are you free around money? And I want to ask you this too, because if we were in a temple right now and we were, dancing and sensual, we might be really free with our bodies. We might be free with our lovers, sharing, like taking pleasure in each other's pleasure. We might even be free talking about sex. I mean, a lot of us have done a lot of work to actually overcome guilt, fear, and shame around things that would horrify most of the culture. And so we're liberated in those ways. However, if I were to say, can I, spend some intimate time with your partner, you might say, sure, help yourself. Or if I say, can I borrow money? And it's like, ooh. Or can I see what your IRS statement was? It'd be contraction. Or how do you feel about, ISTA having our assistants pay for their education and there's some contraction? It's like people have contraction around money or compulsions around money that shows that they're not really free. It's like it still controls us. It still runs us. And for me to go, oh, wow, what does liberation mean? And at the deepest sense, like when we start to uproot all the limiting beliefs, because yes, we can say we know money's not the root of all evil. We know that money, it doesn't just come if you work hard. Like we have done some of the superficial weeding, like from society. Like I really trust, like this is an advanced group that's pretty renegade that says, hey, I don't have a standard relationship to money. But what's underneath those roots, when you pull them up, there's still a belief in your own root that I need money to survive. Like, who feels that? Like, I need money to survive. But I need to do that, right? That means we're not free. And that very assumption, like if we're going to do the deepest fucking shadow work, we say, do you really need money? And do you need it at the level that you're chasing it or working on it or holding it or handling it? Like there's a whole way of rewriting that, because the mind's going to say, yeah, let me show you my rent. Let me show you my car, my mortgage, but is that need, right? So, this breakthrough for us is to question every assumption, even the assumption that you need money. And I say this, for those of us who have done the traveling to sacred sites like India, who've seen the sadhus who have a bowl of rice and are like, they're doing their spiritual practice and they put their bowl out and they get sustained somehow. And by the way, I am in no way advocating that you renounce money and that you wear handmade clothes and, starve, because we all know that like not having money, there's a lot of really poor people who've renounced money who are still suffering and not free. So our bank account, however much money we have, our external relationship to money is not actually a reflection of how we've organized that internally. And yes, it's true that that abundance isn't our bank account, it is a state of being, that when we are abundance, there is flow that happens and we do attract it. But it's also true that when we're in that needy place, we might be attracting it, but it's running us, it's hooking us, and we're not free either. So you know, when we start to get through our 10 principles of like how money can be like a lover, we want to actually look at some of the deep assumptions and be willing to have a different kind of relationship. Because most of us, by the way, myself included, have done a shit ton of work on even the question of like, I need love. I need your love. I need you to love me, right? Like even that runs us and stops us from being free. So that's a little background of why I'm so passionate about this, you know, as a topic. And the way that I researched and developed this was by doing these weekly classes with the faculty of the International School of Temple Arts. And I had such a range of facilitators. Like I had, you know, one man from India, a Osho devotee who had her associate, like the man from India really had like, hey, this is the starving and the poverty that I saw. Whereas KamalaDevi, who was, you know, a devotee of Osho's, who it's like, hey, in Osho's commune, you gave all your money to the guru. You gave it all. That's how money was, you know, like, and he worked with millionaires and he worked with, you know, like he had a very unconventional way with money, and she had her wisdom. And we had, you know, a couple of Jews who were in kibbutzes and raised in non-money exchange cultures. These are deep experiments of like, what's it mean to be raised where you never touched a bill? If you wanted to get a meal, you just put your name on the list at the cafe. You know, it's like money was not exchanged at the kibbutz. So it's a whole different orientation. So we had a lot of interpenetrating exchange about like, let's really look at this differently. And currently we're at a critical time in history when money is starting to be questioned, especially with Bitcoin and like the way that the Federal Reserve banks are shifting and the financial industry is like crumbling, and the tides of where money and people are investing is completely shifted since the pandemic. And so we're in this immense moment in history where we can say, well, what does the new culture look like? What are we creating? And how can we be a part of that transition? Because we're not there yet, the, you know, either utopic or dystopic ideas of where we're headed with money. But what is it? What is this? What is the alternative? What are the substitutes? What can we do in the transition that we're in? And so it's a really powerful time to question everything. And, you know, and I have done studies that look deeper into how community moves together with money, with kind of crowdsourcing and group and shared values. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But let's go ahead and shine a light on some of the limiting beliefs, okay? And this is where I'm gonna want you to self-assess a bit, because, you know, you're gonna have your own background. And I'm just going to read a little list that I have here somewhere. I jotted some of the very typical like beliefs. They're like in the air. You've heard them before. So as you hear them, just notice which one pings in you. All right. So of course, from the Bible, we'll start with money is the root of all evil. Time is money. Money. And actually just take a breath after. You know what? Shake your body. Take a moment and go, okay. And there's a way in which money and whatever beliefs you have has its roots in you. And I invite you to just kind of clear that, let it all go, clear it, clear the space or your blank space, and just be like, okay, I'm going to take a breath and feel this, right? Time is money, or money is time. Just notice your body's reaction. Money is dirty or, you know, sleazy. So money doesn't grow on trees, or maybe it does grow on trees. Money's easy or it's not easy. Just feel into that. How about money makes the world go round? So just notice what's happening in your body as you play with, I never have enough money. Or maybe, oh, I always have enough money. It's always there. Just notice both of those may live inside you. Or the judgment that you can't be rich, and have an open heart. Like, what's the relationship there between you kind and rich? So now that I've named a few that are just on the top of my list, I'm going to see if there's anyone who wants to voice anything else that's popping up, or anyone that you feel I've missed, you want to draw attention to. Just raise your hand if you wanted to add one.
I would add only people with a formal education, like a college degree or something, deserve money.
Ooh, yeah, that's deep in the culture. Any other additions?
Something about needing a pension, or like the idea that if you don't save now, then you'll regret it later.
Yeah, that idea of money is like this nest we need to build, right? Yeah, so the deep way to look at, like, ooh, which one still has a hold of me? Which ones still run me, right? Are when we actually when we see something that we want, like this is a real easy experiment. You could just cross over right now if you wanted to go to Amazon, start shopping a little bit. And if you see something you want that you're like, ooh, that's a stretch. What's in that stretch? What are those? They start to run. The stories just come right up, don't they? And then in those moments, there is deeper work to go, like, ooh, where's the wanting for this thing coming? Because it's not money we want. It's either the things we want to buy. And Amazon's one thing. It might be like, if you go to Priceline, a lot of us mentioned travel. Like, just I was like, ooh, where in the world, or you look at the Grove, where in the world do I want to go? Let me look at the ISTA website of upcoming events, or and just say, ooh, what is it that I value? Where's it coming from? And then the deeper sense is, what do I have to give up to get that? And then we start getting to, what do I value more or less? And if we're really honest, there is a kind of a hierarchy of, ooh, I need to take care of my, bottom lines first. And then this, and some of us are responsible around here's my travel fund. And some of us are not responsible at all. And that's okay. This isn't, right now what we're doing is just saying, well, what are the underlying beliefs behind the decision-making about money? And spending is one piece. I want to acknowledge that there's also, of course, the accounting for, like I mentioned, what about the responsible reconciliation? What about the retirement or the IRA fund or the, like investments? That's the accounting piece. And then finally, there's the, there's also like saving. So we have saving, we have spending, we have accounting, and it's similar, like that trinity to the God in spirituality, right? So we have the generating energy, God, G-O-D, generating, operating, and destroying. Although I don't like to think of spending as destroying, but like there's something in that cycle of like, hey, it's no longer in your care, right? But there is a flow to it. And this is a teaching from T. Harv Eker, by the way. Most relationships that fight about money, they fight because the wife is more of a spender and the husband's a saver, or vice versa on the genders. It doesn't matter. But if we have one person who's the accountant type who just likes to count it, and then you have one person who likes to spend it a lot, they're going to have a fight. So as a relationship coach, the marriages that I've counseled that say money is a great source of suffering for our marriage, it's often because their styles are different. And so it's something to just look inside of yourself and come to relationship clean with, like, ooh, yes, we all spend, save, and account our money differently, but my orientation's really more towards the saving. That's my nature, and like kind of know that about yourself and own it and come more aware to a relationship. And that very assessment, by the way, is valuable into the relationship with money, for you to just have the self-awareness, like, where's my orientation? Because I want to have a deeper, richer relationship with money itself. So maybe I can expand. If I am a saver, maybe I can expand myself into spending more so that money can flow, so that I'm more in the currency, I'm more in the exchange of energy, not just in, one aspect. And maybe that one aspect is saving more, and that'll create more exchange as well, because you're not stuck in your pattern. All right, so I've gotten a little ahead of myself. I want to have you in a breakout group do a little self-assessment. And so again, this T. Harv Eker like, it comes from Millionaire Mindset. And what he'll often do is he'll separate the rooms. Like if you're in a big hall, he'll say, okay, all the spenders go to this corner, all the savers go to that corner, all the, and there's a fourth corner, which I haven't mentioned. Besides the accountants, you have someone who's, well, actually, he often talks about voidant, people who just want nothing to do with money, which I bet there's a few in here. It's like, I don't even want to see the bills stacking up. I don't even want to see, when I get a paycheck, I don't even like looking at it. Like, some people really avoid money. They're money avoidant. And that fourth category is the monk mentality. So I want to speak to this because in sacred sexuality, many of us are conditioned from a yogic standpoint or from a spiritual standpoint. And that was my background. I have 15 years as a yoga teacher, and there was a deep renunciation in my initiation that was like a vow to poverty. Like, that was part of my yogic training. And at the time, it felt like really holy and high to like rise above all of the not just money, it really is like, this is about attachment, this is about need. Like, it was very valuable for me to do that developmentally when I did that. However, a lot of us live now with, oh, there's a higher holy monk mentality. And we don't, it's like, let's bring that to the altar and say how that has separated us sometimes, feeling like money is not spiritual. That split between material and spiritual is actually a pathological fracture, especially when we are dakas or dakinis or sexual healers. It's like we're awakening and transforming people, enriching lives immensely, and then believing like, oh, there's something, like, I shouldn't be charging for this because, or at least some part of me thinks that. If it was truly spiritual, then I wouldn't be charging for this, or shouldn't be making money off of it. And so I really wanted to speak to that up front and say, all right, well, it feels like this is kind of imminent because I don't want to lose you. What we're going to do is go into a breakout group, and we are going to identify if you're, a spender, a saver, avoider, like you like accounting, you are a monk, like just kind of feel into it and talk with your triad. So we're going to break out into 3, and we're going to have 2 minutes each to share and or anything else that this is bringing up for you in the process. So this is where I'm counting. So welcome back. I know that this is an ongoing, inquiry that you want to continuously look at. What is my relationship? How do I define my relationship to money? And it's complex. So these categories don't encompass, because we all have all of these, and we all have blocks and or, like blessings in each of these areas. But did anyone have a harvest or something that they want to share with the group, like a big aha or insight just from the self-reflection or from what you heard from your partners?
I do.
Good. We'll
And
take yours and Leah's.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I kind of had it. I actually kind of just had it like in the aftermath of what we talked about and kind of letting it all sink in. And what I realized is that there's a saying that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And it kind of brings home, because we're all spiritual workers here, so we all know that there's no coincidences. But I have issues with intimacy in pretty much every area of my life. And that comes from childhood wounds, different traumas and stuff like that. So I just think that that was kind of the aha for me, was realizing that that's where the blind spot is, and that it's not just money, but money happened to be the kind of like the medium for the message, really.
Great. What a beautiful share. And I particularly just celebrate that you normalize, that we as professional lovers sometimes have intimacy issues, and just the normalizing of like that can trip us up, like what's it called, imposter syndrome, like, ooh, who am I to teach this when I have this? But it's like, who are you not to? Because we need to teach what we most need to learn. Like those cracks from our traumas are actually often our superpowers of what we're here to work on in this incarnation. So yeah, thank you for noticing that that's a big theme, and that crack, we call them soul wounds. Those soul wounds go all the way through, even to our relationship with money. Yeah, good. Leah.
Yes, thank you. So for me, it was interesting to remember the relationship to our relationship with money compared to what our parents experience, and the relationship with money as the relationship with the sexuality. So the correlation with the both.
Absolutely. So just as we ask ourselves, oh, what did my mom feel about sex, and how did I inherit that, unconsciously? We want to ask ourselves, what did my mother feel about money? What did my father teach me about money? And like, even if you disagree with it or you built your life in reaction to it, what impact did that have on you? So that's a really great line of how to do the shadow work on what money is, to look at any caregiver or significant figure in your life left an imprint on your, money relationship. In the same way that the first couple times that we're having sex, our parents are like somehow in the bedroom with us. It's like, oh, they're actually in my bank account with me. They're somehow in that conversation, until we liberate them from it, until we let them go, until we let that okay, got your medicine, thank you, and I release you. So yeah, stalking our shadows around money. Thank you for those examples. It is a deep one. And here's my key is, be in this conversation, not just in this breakout group where we're doing it as a webinar, but be in this conversation all the time with all your lovers. And I don't mean like, this is an obsessive thing we need to look at. It's like, money is one of the topics on which we talk about the least. Like, so where I had said before, it's easy to say, I'm polyamorous. And it's not easy to say, like, I earn $250,000, or I am currently intending to. And right now I just covered, what was it, $225,000, or whatever it is that my goal is this, and my actual annual income is this. Like, these are, like, even just using that as an example, it gets awkward. I start to sweat. And you want to say, oh, wait, when someone asks you, what is your earning income? Like, notice how is it okay? Or can I say, are they going to judge me? Like, there's so much shame around it. And the antidote to shame is to share. So transparency is so medicinal, to us reclaiming our power and reclaiming our freedom around this. So with that, I want to move into more freedom. In my story about the magic words that Bruce said that changed my whole relationship to money, it's like, are you free around money? And so I'm going to share with you the 10 best practices of relationship that I teach that relate to money. And I want you to listen with a particular kind of ear, which is you're listening for the work that you need to do. So as I share this, you're like, oh, where is it that I can get the most growth out of? Because obviously in this list of 10, it's going to be overwhelming. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose where it took us 10 weeks to unpack this. I'm just saying, hey, let me introduce you to this, but how do you live into these? How do you vibrate? How do you re-script and rewire the brain and your habits? It's incremental, right? And a lot of us actually, what I find in the community of sacred sexuality is we believe in this this lightning bolt of transformation. Like we want to just have these breakthroughs where we then are completely different. It's like this whole experience of quantum shift. And sometimes we bypass that. Real material change takes sustainable small habits on a daily basis to see our character shift. And the kind of shift we want to see in money requires an overhaul of our habits. And that sometimes takes some handholding. That sometimes takes a community. It's easy to say, okay, I get it, but how do I apply it? And that's little baby steps. So ready to listen for the work you need to do. All right, so I'm going to start with the number one thing, because this is the lightning bolt that I got from Bruce, and it's about being free. So we come into relationship and we don't want to be codependent. We don't want to need money, right? You want to come in whole and you want to come in full. So any relationship that you have, what happens when you're like, I need you, I can't live without you, right? That energy pushes people the fuck away. You're going to activate even if they're not avoidant attachment, they're going to be avoidant. So there is a way in which you want to stalk how you feel needy and that lack place of money. And so healthy relationships have differentiation, which means I'm independent, you're independent. Together, a relationship is interdependent, but it's not codependent, right? And so you really want to look deeply at that illusion of need. And this, like I said, you could spend 10 weeks just working on this, but the meditation transmission that I'll offer, this is the seed. This is the most valuable thing that I'll say in this whole webinar. The dark seed that I want you to plant in the heart of your hearts is that abundance as a state, as a vibration and a frequency, comes from source, and source is infinite. So when we're in touch with that infinite source, then the illusion of lack will just fall away. Just in the same way that you turn on the light and the dark just somehow magically disappears, we must come to that kind of a place, in order to feel like I don't need this, money to survive. So there's, deep work to be done there, but I'll start there. And I'll say number two, in relationships, when I get couples come to me and their marriage is falling apart, probably the first thing I ask is, are you guys prioritizing each other and the marriage? So number two is you need to prioritize your money, right? You have to make time to be with it, to account it, to set some goals, to spend time with your money. And I mean kind of like date nights to honor the relationship. Like for me, it's the 1st and the 15th, you know, or, you know, for some people it's like, oh, it's spontaneous, but like, when do you do your bills? When it, like, you want to actually put your attention on money, like in this way, like prioritizing it, and it grows, right? And we'll talk more about appreciation next, but actually let's do that. I'm going to change these numbers here. So number 3, I'm going to talk about appreciation, which actually is a really cool term. It's not only a money term, appreciation, where money grows, but it's a soul term. Like our souls, you know, are watered by appreciation. And it's, you know, what we put our attention on does appreciate. And so this is where we started when we said, hey, what has money afforded you? Can you be grateful? Like, you guys were awesome about, I love my car, I love my apartment. But how often do you sing those praises? In other words, like, do not take money for granted. And this happens especially with people who are really like, oh, I'm gonna raise my income, or I'm gonna raise my abundance, and they get very goal focused and they stop looking at what they already have and they start looking at, and then it activates the kind of the gap, and that gets uncomfortable. But appreciation is when you're looking at what you do have so much that it expands to fill that gap. So what you do have becomes what you are, you know, intending and desiring. So it's a really beautiful principle, and you know, most of us are pretty fluent in the law of attraction. It's one of the deep fundamental teachings in law of attraction. So how cool is that? Appreciation of it, not taking it for granted, is, you know, is a financial term as well. So let's talk about the C word, right? As you could even look at a Vogue or a Cosmo magazine, and they say, like, all the relationship experts have one thing that a good, healthy relationship is based on, and that's what starts with a C, right?
Communication.
Yes.
Communication.
Communication. It's like if we were in real estate and it's like location. Like, this is the only thing that really measures the quality of a relationship. Like, the quality of a relationship is our communication. And being able to communicate about money, like, with honesty and trust, it like creates an intimacy. There's a bond there. There's a truth telling there. Like, the vulnerability of saying, you know, this is what I charge for my sessions. This is what, and having, sometimes even having those conversations, those difficult conversations, when a client who really genuinely wants your services is for some reason struggling to make it work in their finances, and to have one of those conversations around, okay, well, what can you afford, or what does work? And that brings up this whole other conversation I'm happy to have another time around how, you know, we, as the abundant beings that we are, don't want to enable their lack, you know, by focusing on what they can. And sometimes that's not a healthy relationship to be in, but sometimes it's like, hey, just on matter of principle, turning away a client who really values what your work is, but they can't meet you is also not healthy for the soul medicine exchange that wants to happen. So that's a whole communication process that is valuable. But the kind of communication that is most important is, you know, like what we just did in that breakout group. Are you talking to your friends? Are you talking to your clients? Are you talking to people about money? And it's not something that you put into the shadow and not look at, because when we do put things in the shadow, they grow like mushrooms. Like, you know, they like, it's dangerous what can happen. The pathology starts to happen. But this is about, you know, being open and honest about money. Now, I'm going to separate the next two together. It's giving and receiving. So number 5, there's something so valuable. Like, if this is about, I like the term paying attention, because it's paying as a money term. You want to pay, you want to give that which you want to get. You always want to give that. If it's attention that you want, you give attention. If it's empathy that you want, you give empathy. Like, this is a deep, like, reciprocal rule. In fact, the word giving in the Kabbalah, which is the mystical text of the Jewish culture, the mystical side of Judaism, the Kabbalah means giving. It's another word for love. Love is giving. And so I want to encourage this tithing. It's a deep spiritual principle to give back to the source of your nourishment. So that's to say, like, how often do I take some portion of my money and I actually give back? And that then kind of creates the exchange in the currency. And that exchange in currency, that flow isn't complete without this number 6, which is receiving. And this is something, like, we all know, because we play with the wheel of consent. So we all, as service providers, we're often like, oh, I'm so excited to give my gifts. I'm so excited to give my tools. But some of us are like, no, I'm not sure I deserve to get, or, I don't know if I'm really that worthy. And we have to do some work on, like, how open are you? Is your heart open? Are your legs open? Are you open to receive, like, gifts and support and, that client that wants to tip you? Because if you're not energetically open, that tip doesn't get offered. And, it's just a matter of, like, really being open to receive financial abundance from the universe in various forms of family, or someone who owes you debt, or, being open to receive the payback. I'm gonna just check in and see if there's any questions or comments so far. Any light bulbs or insights that you want to share with the group? Good, Patrick.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I really love this number 6, receiving. It's something that I would like to share because it took me a while to understand what I understand today about receiving, because I was always, in the world of love languages, receiving gifts was always my weakest link. Like, I don't need it. I don't, no thanks, no. But what I did not understand is that receiving is actually also giving.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I got that, I was like, oh, wow. Because I know I put a lot of effort, a lot of thought into creating some gift to give somebody. And when they deny it or decline it, because they're just being respectful or nice, they just don't want to receive it. It makes me feel like disconnected from what I was wanting it to be for you. It's like, if you receive this, you're actually giving me this satisfaction. It's an energetic exchange. So
Yeah,
I learned this recently, and it's been a huge shift in my being with receiving.
Thank you. Yeah. What's his name? Deepak Chopra tells this fabulous story about, obviously a very wealthy man. He's like, I don't feel any guilt about being a spiritual teacher that takes a lot of money. And of course, he was trained as a endocrinologist, and so he's got kind of that medical background. And he's a really good teacher about, for those of us who are doing spiritual and sexual services, there's a way in which sometimes we expect ourselves to give freebies or trades. We wouldn't expect an endocrinologist to give a freebie or a trade. Like, we really need to value sexuality and spirituality and say, like, hey, this is what I'm dedicating my life to. I'm studying it. I'm growing it. I have these gifts, and they're, just as valuable as a surgeon. This is what my life force energy is dedicated to. So on the receiving giving story, Deepak Chopra's advice for people who are wanting to open that channel of exchange and abundance is to actually go out into the street. Well, this is what he does, whether it's his advice or not. And he hands out $20 bills to the homeless. He says, and it's not just like here, it's like, I look into the eyes of another and I see my eyes looking back to me, and like to actually give them that 20 to feel them receive, like it creates that connection in humanity of like, I'm giving to myself as I'm giving that 20. So yeah, that's a really powerful reflection. Okay, so moving on, and I'm going to quickly touch on shadow stalking, simply to say, because we've already started that when you're, in partnership, you're also in partnership with your own, each other's triggers and wounding, and there's things that you're not seeing, there's things you're not saying. And it's the same with money. Like, you want to be doing responsibly the work. We already started that. And that's a big part of having a healthy relationship, is to be stalking your own shadow. So number 8 is, so I have that we've got this ritualization of practices in Tantra, which is, it's one thing to prioritize and spend time with something. It's another thing to say, let's have sacred time. Let's have rituals. Let's have play dates. Let's spend time with sex magic or visualization, or like, what is the extraordinary part of the relationship? So how do you play with money in a way that isn't just you and money, it's you and money and God? Like, there's really bringing breath, movement, sound, all of your gifts and tools to your relationship with money in order to, like, exalt that, like, to consummate it in that holy trinity with the divine. So big breath and a celebration, because I think that's actually where this group can really excel, is when you bring money to your altar and do the magic there. So we have a lot of fun that week in in playing with that, in ritualizing our relationship to money. And I will say that number 9 is like joy and fun, because a lot of times relationships are so much work that it drains us, and we need to, like, find the pleasure and the joy and just expand that, and get really playful and silly, and one of the advice of T. Harv Eker is to actually have a specific fund for fun, which is that, hey, every month I spend this much money just on play, and I'm not, giving any prescribed amount of, what percentage that should be. I'm just suggesting that you do the deep inquiry of, like, wow, if my relationship with money isn't healthy, maybe what's lacking is the joy of my soul. Maybe I'm not, my husband, for example, was in the wrong business for a long time, and it made a lot of money. And when I got pregnant, he was like, okay, time for me to really ask, what's life about? I've got a baby coming. What kind of role model do I want to be? And he decided, while I was pregnant, to quit his job, which I was not real happy about at the time. But now that he's an environmentalist and doing what he loves, like, I'm so grateful that he made that change, because money may or may not, this idea of, like, do what you love and the money will flow, like, that may or may not be fucking true. But what's true is life is too precious to not do what you love, and to not be in your joy, and to not have your relationship and source of money be something that you really enjoy. All right, I notice I'm just, like, speeding through all these because I have an exciting, invitation here. The final piece, and this is really the reason I made this number 10, is because it is so important. And just like it's hard for us to ask for, like, to receive money, it's also hard for us to ask for help. And when I look at many people who have really successful marriages, successful partnerships, and you say, well, what is it that makes them really thrive? Well, they were willing to get help on their relationships. They were willing to do the workshops, read the books, go to the coaches. And so often in our own relationship with money, we feel like, oh, I'm going to show my financial independence by just doing it myself. Like, I'm going to be the independent, and I'm going to do this myself. And it's shame usually that's keeping us from saying, hey, I don't know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know how to, like, invest in a Roth IRA. I don't know which cryptocurrency, so, I implore that you humble yourself before the incredibly complex thing that is money, and say, there are experts out there, there are allies out there are communities out there that can support me in building the healthy habits and the healthy relationship with money. And so in addition to the obvious, like I definitely recommend you listen to, as I have, like, you know, I've referenced T. Harv Eker, but there's also like Tony Robbins and you know, one of my favorite money sources, like I really enjoy some of the best-selling books and teachings on money, but my favorite teacher on money is Lynn Twist, the book Soul of Money. So there's immense resources out there that are extremely enlightened, and conventional wisdom is really valuable if you take it as a foundation and then transcend to post-conventional wisdom. So it's good to do the basic, like what are the best-selling books on finances, and then go to the next level, which Lynn Twist's teachings very much about that sufficiency, and also really omni-considerate of the impact of what we're spending on the planet. And spending and saving and earning and how we manage money. It's a great book. So I offer that now as just an easy reference, but the deeper invitation from my heart, if you resonate to you know, these teachings and you're interested on how do I like actually apply this in my life? Like, what does it look like? Because, you know, a couple hour webinar is not going to take it to the whole rewiring level of a new reality, but a year-long mentorship will. And so I want to tell you about the Love Leadership. And I did have a couple of my love leaders on the call earlier, but I think Kana's not with us now, so I will, you know, speak for some of these beautiful beings. It's really more of a coven. The way that I do my mentorship and mastermind is a spiritual gathering of souls. And so, yes, you know, money is one of the very important aspects that we look at. Like we play this, you know, success strategy, like bingo, like we have a lot of fun with like, how are we as sacred sexual practitioners playing the game of entrepreneurship? And we look at all those aspects. So in addition to money, it's like, how are you managing your time? And how are you, you know, blocking your packages so that you're, you know, not doing so much back end seeking of your clients, and how are you defining your clients? Like, so we do it all, and we do it in a magical, mystical way. So it's less about the doing, and it's way more about the being. It's like who you are in your practice. So yeah, I just wanted to show you, these are some of my goddesses that I happen to be working with. They're all female body now, but I'm non-binary. I didn't mention in the beginning in my introduction, but I do welcome male bodies as well. And the way that the coven works is that we meet twice each month. So we'll have you, I kind of gave you an experience of like, okay, this is like a session where you get a transmission, we have a discussion, and at the end of the group, we'd each say, here's my next steps. So today, as we start to wrap up, I want you to look at, wow, I just got a lot of information from this webinar. It only matters if the rubber starts to hit the road with me doing something about it. So what is your next step? And so I'm going to ask you that today, because that's what we do at the end of each webinar. But the beauty of being in a year-long mentorship is you're held accountable. So we would come back in 2 weeks after getting all this teaching on a topic that's valuable to our own work, and we would only do the homework that we choose. We self-select, this is what I need to do. And in 2 weeks, then we have a mastermind, which would look like our discussing that topic in depth with, you know, we might put somebody on the hot seat and say, well, how's that going for you? And what support, reflections, advice could we offer to you? And so that second session is usually like more about how to apply. Good. Bella, you had a question.
Yes. Number 7 in your list. What was that again?
I'll come back to that in just a moment after I
Okay.
finish telling you about the mastermind.
Of
and then
course.
I'll also circle back to that.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So we meet twice, and I am kind of painting a picture of what it would look like after the mastermind, where we get very deep and intimate together, because it's it's an intimate group. It's actually one of the most innermost circle that I have, so I'm participating fully in it. So we also have accountability, where you'll have a buddy for the couple of weeks in between, where you can work out your challenges, or you can peer coach each other, or just offer reflections. So each month we kind of rotate buddies, and then you get the extra support. And if you kind of search your heart around some of your own resistances to your own success, it's usually around like, oh, how do I get motivated to do that thing I know I should already do? Like, you all already know what it would look like to have a successful business, all the practices you should be doing. Like, there's a huge, like, here's where I should be, but the reality of what you're actually doing is here. And who holds you to do the things that you know you need to do is your accountability buddy and your coven, so that you're every month working on your own work. Like, I'm not giving you extra homework other than, oh, this is what I know I need to do, and I'm doing it. And then the incredible inspiration that comes through the synergy of a group that knows each other. That's where real magic starts to happen, because we offer like unique reflections to the soul. It's very different than, here's what I read in this book. It's more like, I know who you are and what you're here for, and let me help you shine. So that's the nature, or just a flavor of what I'm offering. And the prerequisite, to get into, so that's, that's the process. I'll just say up front that it's a very select group. I'm really only taking people who have really deep experience in the field. And we would need to have a conversation first to see if we're a fit. And that's the big invitation of this. Like, you spent 2 hours with me getting a sense of how I teach, and I want to honor that by offering you actually half price on my my breakthrough session. So normally, to have an hour-long call where we really focus on your business, how you're doing it, how you could break through, my fee is $250 US. And so I'm offering you actually more than half price, because you stayed to the end of this call. I'm offering you that hour for $108. And so it's not just about the love leadership. This is about me and you looking at your business and saying, okay, how can you play that game? Well, how are you playing it now? And what can I, with my years of experience in this field, offer to support you in streamlining it, or finding, income that you didn't know was available, or, just play the game differently. So I want to be on your team as a trial to see if you want to work with me. And so I'm offering a session for $108. At the end of that session, if we're a match for the love leadership, then, that money can go towards your love leadership package. And that package depends on whether you want, how many individual sessions you want with me, because the package of love leadership includes a seasonal 4 sessions with me, but you may want to opt into more. So I won't go into the price of the love leadership, but I do want to offer you that one-on-one, and there's limited spots. So if you're available and want that, or if you're interested and I'm available, send me your email address right away, and we'll get that scheduled. And if you're watching this on the replay, I will say that, send me your email. Let me know you're interested. I can't offer you the discount, but I can offer you, a session, and would love to see how to support you. Okay. So before I get to Bella's question about the the 10 best practices of relationship, do I have any questions about my love leadership or my breakthrough sessions?
I have a question about like how the program goes. You said there's is it like group sessions twice a month?
Yeah.
And like as far as like how the sessions go, is it like similar to what we're doing now? Are we going to be doing ritual? Are we going to be like what would, I mean, I don't want to know everything. I want
Sure, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So ritual and prayer and meditation is all part of it. That's, you know, part of the tools. But I'll say that we do get online twice a month like this. And I will say that because it's a year-long mentorship, we have, and it's a coven, we have seasonal enrollment. So this very intimate group that's already running, you would be coming in on the winter solstice. So it'd be like, oh, cool. Between now and the winter solstice, you prepare, and then come winter solstice, you'd enroll until the next winter solstice. And then during the seasons, there'd be other, you know, there's an infusion of new energy that comes and goes seasonally.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Are you interested perhaps in having a breakthrough call? It'd be really wonderful to dive in. And I'm saying that in general. Good.
Yeah, I'll send you my email.
Sounds good. Sounds great. Okay, and I didn't get your emails before this webinar, so feel free to put that into the chat, and that way at least I can stay in touch. Okay, excellent. I'm gonna zip back to my list, and I'm gonna actually ask, for those of you who are taking notes, for someone else to answer Bella's question about number 7. What did you hear? Who was excited about number 7? This is a pop quiz.
I heard joy and fun and bringing that into it.
Yes, someone like, thank you. So it seems so.
Number 9. Number 7, I was also confused about. Maybe it was shadow stalking.
Well, I'm have to pull up my notes, which I already sent away. Yeah, 7 was shadow stalking. That's correct. That was the one that I was like, hey, we started off with this, so I'm going to be brief. Good. I want to say a note about the joy and fun. This is something that can't be overlooked and underestimated. You know, this story that making money has to be hard is so ingrained. Like, you have to work hard. Like, what do you think? And the idea, this, especially for our community, that we're pleasure professionals, like bringing pleasure and play is so valuable. And if we want to, you know, expand and really be abundant, we have to have pleasure and play in our relationship to money too. Like, that's a piece where if you're like, oh, my life is great. Oh, I have to do my accounting. Oh, I have to go to the bank. Like, that energy will cut us off from our source of the infinite. It'll cut us off from our joy and our life force energy, which is the state of abundance. And so this is a good one, like, to just track after this call, like, ooh, how can I get more excited and have more fun when I do money matters? Yeah. And one of the ways to make things more fun is to have a community, to have a group that's talking about it, that's juiced about it, because that actually, even if we're dragging our feet, it's like, at least at the gym, we get to watch people in spandex. It just, you know, like that kind of idea of not working out alone. It's a lot more fun. Monkey see, monkey do, for us primates to do things in tribe. Great. So I want to open it to general questions about anything that was shared here before we go into the most important part, which is next steps. What one thing, you know, are you taking from this that you're willing to do differently? That's the closing circle. It's just choosing, like, ooh, I'm committed to this one thing. And there may be a lot, but it will benefit you to articulate one priority. Any questions before we go there? All right, who wants to start? Bella, is your hand still up, or Okay.
I will certainly start if you'd like me to
Great.
start.
Yes, please.
All right. I think for me, it's going to be prioritizing my money.
Great.
That's where I would like to start.
And I'm going to just push you a little bit since you're our role model. Is there more specific about what it would look like for you to prioritize it? Give us just a picture of what that might look like.
What that looks like for me personally is having and knowing the source of that money so that I have the ability to go where I desire, travel where I desire, and bring with me who I desire. So it's for me, creating the source first and foremost, so that I am in a number one state of not neediness.
Excellent. Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
And I'll just go ahead and on my screen, if we were going around the circle, it'd go to Leah, and then Deva, and then Alan, but Leah.
Yes. So for me, I'm seeing three things. The first of all, include the money law making with, include, oh my God, sorry for my English. Okay, I'm doing rituals and I can connect with some energy. So I just realized that I can do ritual with just, feeling the good pleasure with the money, So connect with him like this, through rituals. The first thing, and the two other thing, it's like I'm involved in discussion about money with some people.
Good.
Like, so I know I will accept money to someone, and I will say, okay, no, my price for the men's circle is this, and you have to pay this
Yeah.
So to see how to modulate more. Yeah.
And negotiation. Excellent. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And next, my dear.
Yes, ma'am. So for me, it was number one, like off the bat. And it just was it was personal. Like when you talk about like that codependent relationship, and that's the one that resonated with me most. And getting free around money, and realizing that I don't actually need it to survive. I don't. I've been in situations before where I had no money and I'm still here.
Yes,
and
you are. Love it.
And at the same time, recognizing that it's like, no, I don't need you, but I want you.
Yeah.
And I love you.
Yeah.
Come on, baby. So yeah, that's the one for me. And just working on cultivating that type of attitude, because I noticed like when I would be in that state of mind and feeling where it's like I'm literally fucking throwing tantrums and having a mental breakdown about money, and then being like, why isn't it coming? You know what I mean? Like, because nobody likes that. It's not cute. You know what I mean? It's not attractive. And it's actually repulsive. So
yeah, like money wants to be in a relationship with an infant throwing a tantrum. Like, thanks for the visual. I think we can all relate. Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm on my way to a dental appointment, so sorry for the noise in the background. If you hear anything. I lost the connection for the last 5 minutes or so. What's the question? Are we talking about?
We're harvesting. It's okay, right. And you can pass if you want, but we're just harvesting. What one thing do you plan to take away to do as a result of this call?
Got it. What really struck me today is when you're talking about the relationship with money, that like spend the time to treat it like a date with the money. That really hit me, because I always treat money as a thing, as a thing. So it really resonates with the topic that money is a lover. So I treat it like my lover. So it's a, how do I say that? We are interdependent.
Right.
But yeah, so money is not a thing. It's a person or it's a lover, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so what I'm gonna do is spend some time each week and how do I say that? To create a date with money.
Good. Money's grateful.
It is.
To have you as a date. That's awesome, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's really great. Yeah, thank you.
And Jerry.
I think that many things resonated with me, but something that kind of stood out was talking about, you used the word soul medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in both the spiritual work that I do, and then also in my kind of daytime work, I work as a veterinary surgeon, and I have this tendency to be okay with charging my clients and them understanding the value of that work and not feeling guilty so much about that. And I feel that with my spiritual clients, I have this tendency to be very lenient and, well, if you don't have it, it's okay. I know that you need this soul medicine, but it's all medicine. And learning to value that medicine is something that I'm going to have to work on within myself, feeling worthy of giving that medicine and having that exchange that's fair.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Good. So I'm going to go next to Erica and then Patrick, and we're going to be brief because we just have a few minutes left. Joy, you're last on my list. Erica.
Okay. What I got was getting rid of the guilt I feel when I buy something for myself, whether it's something small or big, something I saved up for, whatever. I tend to feel a little bit guilty about buying something for myself. So I'm wanting to take little baby steps in that. And when I do buy something for myself, just appreciate it and be like, hey, like you deserve to buy things for yourself. You don't have to put all your money into bills and rent and all that stuff. Like you can enjoy the money that you're bringing in. So that's what I got.
Excellent. Thank you.
You hear me?
Yes.
So a lot of goodness out of this call. It's really good. I got communication as one of them, with a tie-in of asking for help. So the communication piece is, in relationship, you want to be transparent. So you have the proper communication, because a lot of the times when we talk about money, it's so uncomfortable and you're not always transparent about it. So I'm going to take that into a practice, but also asking for help. I feel like I'm usually the one that likes to do things. I can do it on my own, and I will look really good. I pretend to look good, like nobody knows what I'm really doing, because I feel like I look bad if I ask for help with anything. And so that's kind of a thing I need to open up to, is it's okay to ask for help. So I want to communicate transparently and ask for help as my practices.
I'm glad to hear it.
I think the biggest thing that's coming for me is the giving. I can kind of see how, especially because I quit my job and I feel like I haven't got so much money coming in, and I can feel how I tighten, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can't, like, I'll pay less for these things or whatever. And especially when it comes to like actually receiving sexual healing work myself, like I feel like I'm in a place now where there's this piece I really want to get, and there's this sense of like, oh, I shouldn't have to pay for it, or I can't, and it's like, if I don't value this work, who's going to value it in me? Like, this is just, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Joy. And I think it's a great reminder for all of us who are sexual healers or teachers or, whatever aspect of the sacred sex field, even if you're a group, facilitator, like we have to invest in that which we do ourselves. It's part of that energetic exchange. And I love actually the oracle that it is to have Alan on this call, who's like, hey, I'm a daytime stock trader. And when you, and I never thought to make a date out of, this. Sometimes we in our work, because sacred sexuality is our work, sometimes it's like, okay, well, what do I want to do for play? And we need to actually keep it very juicy for ourselves, and not be like the gynecologist that can't see another vagina. It's like you want to like have this genuinely be your path, something that you would do whether or not it was for money, and the way to keep in that integrity is not to devalue your services, that you are really valued for it, and that you are investing in it for yourself as well. That's part of the integrity of being a sacred sexual practitioner. So I really celebrate everyone who took, you all paid attention for the last 2 hours. You invested your time and energy into this conversation, and I bless you with it paying off tenfold. Like, I hope that many fruits come from the seeds that were planted here. And I look forward to going much deeper for those of you that are going to have a breakthrough session, a one-on-one call with me before the winter solstice. So looking forward to deepening and stay in touch with your results. I love those success stories, which I get all the time, and I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Lots of love. Blessings.